In this series, lowimpact.org and the Open Credit Network talks with people working to build a mutually owned, democratic, decentralised economy that builds community and doesn't destroy nature. We want to increase collaboration to bring about system change. Find links to the sites mentioned in the videos in the description below. Join the conversation by liking, commenting and subscribing to our channel.
Oh, right. So you've attempted to trade?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. So somebody contacted me when I first joined, and who was interested in some sort of natural building for something, a straw-bale building. And I did go back to them. I think it was in December sometime. It was almost immediately after you put me onto it. So, and that was nice. So I had a chat with them, and I provided them with some info, but they haven't come back to me again. I haven't chased them up yet.
Right. Okay. All right. So that's really interesting. Somebody contacted you for some natural building work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, which I thought was really good, and I can't honestly remember who it was now. There's probably still somewhere in my massive inbox.
Mm. All right, it'd be really interesting to know how that goes.
Yeah, so would I. Yeah, no, I was pleased that somebody sort of came back straight away, and then I liked the idea that it was prompting. You know, I think through the software itself, it was just like prompting whatever it was. I like the idea that it was just working on keywords and stuff and different things, and it was be quite easy to try and hook up with people who were.
Yeah, we want to make it as easy. Well, that's what I want to talk to you about first. How can we improve the experience?
Yeah.
Is there anything that jumps out? Is there anything you found clunky or difficult or confusing?
No, stupidly off the top of my head, I can't remember what the website name is.
Opencredit.network.
Open Credit. That's it. I was pleased with your choice of top-level domain name.
Yeah.
It's funky, isn't it? You can get whatever you want now, can't
you?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just trying to looking at the website now, and members area. Yeah. No, I thought it was really good. My initial feeling on it was that it looked really smart and really professional, and it seemed very easy to use. I think I'm just trying to navigate the capture thing. I know that's what they're always a pain on you, but you've got to get something in. Let's get that in. Yeah,
capture was
okay. The capture thing, yeah, because you have to like click a number of pictures, don't you? And
oh yeah, that's
always a bit of fun trying to get stuff. And I've just navigated that successfully whilst talking, so that's a good sign. So yeah, I'm just looking at my dashboard at the moment, and yeah, no, I was pleased with that, because that first screen, and it's got like that potential trades thing, and I must admit I haven't looked at this a lot, but it says like another member is looking for whatever, and I haven't really. Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, I mean that's great. Now this is where this website is great, I think, Dave, and where it's just down to me being not having enough pairs of hands, is that if I had time to sit down and actually work on my leads, which I very rarely do, which is not great from a business point of view, is it? Let's be honest. You could just work through this, couldn't you?
Well, you must be super busy already, so that's,
Yeah, but one day when I get my sort of like full-time salesperson,
yeah,
then this is a brilliant resource, because then they can just treat this. I mean, that's just leads. Free leads for people who want stuff is gold dust for businesses, isn't it? So
free leads. Maybe we should put that on the homepage.
Yeah, or or yeah, I don't know, or even in time, perhaps it's a chargeable thing. I know that's not the way that we're working and whatever, and it's all about hooking people up, which is great.
Well, there will be transaction fees at some point.
Yeah, for sure, exactly. It's got to work, hasn't it, and be able to fund everything and whatever.
Exactly, so we got to pay for the admin. It's got to work.
Yeah.
So can we quote you on that?
Yeah, of course.
Free lead.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Says full of Huff and Puff. I mean, that'll be a little bit of promotion for you as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Dave. Yeah, no, that's great. I think from any, and this is what I think is quite, and when I speak to people who are sort of running, I mean, let's be honest, I think most of us doing a lot of this stuff, I mean, we are either individuals or micro businesses, or, we're not, and that's the point, isn't it? And I think that's the great idea about this, is you're hooking up those networks with people, and you don't have to be like that sort of massive multinational corporate.
Yeah.
And so that's perfect, I think, to be able to, finding business is just what makes business work, isn't it? whatever sort of platform and how
You
this
keep coming up with superb quotes. You're going to have quotes.
That's good. No, happily, whatever. You can quote me on anything, Dave. You know that. That's great. You know, and that's what you really need to happen. And I think the main thing, like I say, from my personal perspective, I know when I speak to other people with small businesses, the main thing is trying to be able to harness those things. And I think that if there's an easy place to, you know, say for example, you know, my forward planning isn't as great as it should be, and it's difficult with what I do because they do tend to be bigger projects. So they're either a long time coming, or the planning can be coming for, because we do the design work as well and consultancy and stuff. That those things might be, you know, and I'm trying to get my work to be as much about the design and the consultancy as well as the actual building and those sorts of things, because that's what natural building sort of at that stage. You have to be able to provide everything, I think, in order to sort of educate people as well as to be able to actually do the building work. And obviously a lot of things from a self-build perspective is about getting the people to do the building work as well. So it is more about training and stuff as well. And it's got to cover everything, I think, with natural building, because there just aren't very many of us sort of trying to do it. I hesitate to say the word commercially, but it does have to work commercially. You know, at the moment, what the sort of structure that we're in, it's got to be able to function in that arena, or people are never going to do it. It's never going to get to volume. And
yeah.
And it seems a bit unfair because obviously everybody should have better ideas about how to do construction and those sorts of things. But the construction industry is just this massive sort of, you know, it's the old oil tanker scenario, isn't it? You know, like you just sort of chip away at stuff, and it's just, you know, it's very hard to get it to move direction to do anything better. But yeah, so to be able to, if you ran out of work, say, or if you needed more work, you know, then presumably you then have more time on your hands. And if you can just come to a site like this and just immediately try and like ping out some emails to people, then that's perfect, I think, because, you know, it is everything to do with business to me is about communication, whether that's for clients or for engaging in work or during work or whatever.
It's really interesting you should say that. I mean, we ultimately we'd like the site to look more like a social media platform.
Yeah.
So there's lots of communication going on, but
yeah,
you can trade on the same platform.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's perfect. And you know, so far my experience, which I must admit has been sort of limited so far, but I like the way that when you signed up for the full account thing, you could just, you know, you could put in the what I really liked was the way that it gave you some prompts for categories for stuff, because quite often you find yourself doing like random keywords for stuff and you're not ever sure if they're ever going anywhere.
Yeah.
So I really like the fact that it actually prompted you. You've obviously like set up some categories or some ones so far that people might want to use.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think is good, because then that makes it, I think, easier for people to connect rather than having to look through a massive list of what do I want and, you know, those sorts of things. So that matching looks like, you know, and the fact that somebody came back to me within a couple of days of going onto it, I think sort of, you know, it is good on that front. And I like it that you could potentially be just very proactive about that and going out and contacting people.
Like I say, I like it. Was there anything you didn't like? Was there anything that we could improve?
To be honest, Dave, so far, no. I was genuinely, I you know, like everybody at some point in my life, I did it. You know, I came out of IT to do this, and I did a fair amount of web stuff and whatever. And I like the fact now that obviously you don't have to reinvent the wheel to do things like this. And I'm not quite sure what platform it's working on, the software for this, but it seems really amazing. I think it's good.
Don't talk to me about the software.
Well, whatever pain you might be having behind the scenes, it looks really good up front, I think. You know, just the fact that you can come in a couple of clicks, you can just find people who might be, you know, other people who are on it. And let's be honest, it's nice to be able to, one of the nice things about this, I think, is that actually you can instantly come and see people who are, I guess, of the same kind of mindset, which is really hard to do. It's really hard to do generally on the web, I think.
I mean, ultimately, we want everybody of every mindset. But yeah, I know what you mean. So you can think you're in friendly territory.
Exactly. Yeah. And like you say, of course, you know, hopefully, you know, ideally, everybody in the world would be on it, and that's how it would work. But you know, for the time being, at least, I think if you're trying to do, you know, I always say that with sustainable, trying to run a business on whatever sort of footing, a sustainable business, it's really, I think it can be quite lonely, really, and trying to connect with other people who are like-minded and all those sorts of things is sort of, even if it doesn't result in business, is kind of good for the soul in as far as the social media thing goes. You know, I know it's not always good to be surrounded by people who talk the same thing, and it's good to be challenged and blah 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 and all those sorts of things. But I think that a lot of people pushing sustainable businesses, you're kind of trying to you know, it feels to me quite often, and speaking to other people, that you're kind of trying to reinvent the wheel and do other things. And so you're not just selling, it's not as easy as a normal business, because you're not just selling a tried and tested thing. It's like, I always say, like with what we do compared to like people who are, you know, building houses out of brick or whatever, you don't have to sell the concept of building in something in brick. You just go and design it and build it.
You have to sell your services and the entire concept behind it as well. That's exactly what we have to do. Yeah,
which is really, you know, and we all do it because we love it, but it does take an extraordinary amount of time and effort to do that on top of what people would normally do to get something. And so that does result in, you know, smaller margins, if you like.
But people do get it. I mean, when you sit somebody down and explain the concept to them, they get it. It's just absolutely. Nobody's got any time these days to sit down and have a concept explained to them. They're too busy.
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah, and I think, and especially like this, anything to sort of challenge the way that business works on a financial footing is just, I mean, I think that always seems to me like a really hard sell to people, because you know, who wants to, you know, people just want things, and especially now it's such a you know, society now is very much, it's so immediate that people don't necessarily want to think about changing that underlying stuff, do they, or whatever. They don't even think about how it works, and I suppose that's the problem with a lot of society.
I'm not taking notes, by the way. I'm recording this so I can take notes from it later, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine, Dave. Of course, yeah, no worries at all about that. Yeah,
come and say hello to Phil.
Oh, hello. Who's this?
This is Keith.
Oh, Keith. Hello, Keith. I've got a black cat called Suki, but she's not around at the moment. She might appear.
So I suppose the next question is, how do you think we should get the message across? Because there are various ways we can approach that. We can say that, you know, this is good for your business and that's it, or this will strengthen your community, or, you know, this will change the world. And for some people to say this will change the world, it will scare the life out of them and say, you know, I don't want to change the world. I just want something that's good for my business. And if we say this is good for your business, there's a lot of people who will think, oh yeah, that's boring. That's the same old.
Exactly. Yeah.
How would it work if we have to approach you? What would work for you?
Oh, well, for me, obviously, it would work very much on, you know, anything sort of community and working together and environmental and those sorts of things. Yeah, that's what, you know, works for me and what works for my business. But no, I get what you're saying. If you're trying to engage as many people as possible, I guess the sort of the flat answer to that is that, like, I guess you just got to market in different ways to different people. I guess maybe I don't know.
That's the difficult thing. Isn't it?
Trying to engage them.
Something's got to be at the top of the website.
Yeah.
At the moment it says grow your business, which is great, but
yeah, that's it. I mean, to me, you know, I would obviously say, you know, I think pushing it on the I mean the way that I think about it, the whole sustainable thing and everything else, and trying to push that into, that's always been my overriding thing, is always the environmental stuff. You know, and then I feel that quite often then you can make everything else sort of follow on from that. And I think maybe at the moment, you know, that's good. I mean, there is a real push on that front. It does feel like we're sort of pushing more onto open doors rather than in the past. It's been, you know, it's always been in cycles, hasn't it? All of this stuff. I mean, you've been around, you know, I'm 47 now, and it's just, you know, for as long as I can remember, it's always been quite a tough sell. And then there will be times when people want to talk about stuff like that a bit more, and then suddenly it will, you know, get worse again. And you know, I remember being really excited in 1997 because, you know, the Labour Party wrote a great manifesto for the election, which was massively environmental, and then they came in and didn't do much about it at all.
We had a party in 1997.
Yeah.
What fools we were.
That's it. You know, you just don't know what's going to happen to you, but it's kind of, you know, so it's always been sort of like the tide coming in and out, hasn't it? Like pushes on environmental stuff and different things, but there's always like a core of those people in the background. But one thing that fascinates me on the building side, and I don't know what it's like with other businesses as well, is that it's difficult for us to, as well, how you pitch it, because I think natural building suffers from quite a few people just think it is the kind of like hippy dippy kind of whatever stuff, and a lot of people like me, and I think a lot of people in straw-bale certainly, and things, but you know, we're very keen to push it as something that actually just genuinely works, and putting it on the same footing as other construction methods and whatever, because it's never going to reach mainstream unless you do that. You know, it would be lovely if we were, all living in, lovely straw-bale houses or self-built houses and whatever. But I mean, the reality is so far away from that you've got to work out a way to get from A to B, really. I mean, and you have got to, like we're saying with the marketing thing, I think you'd have to try and work out the ways to take as many people with you as possible.
Yeah. We want to sort of push that snowball and get it rolling down the mountain.
Yeah, and you can't just do that by saying, well, this is the Open Credit Network and we stand in a circle and hold hands and do whatever, because
that's true. It's got to be really, really useful and really, really relevant to your business right away. So your circumstances, who are your main suppliers and what do they provide?
An array, really. I suppose mostly sort of, I mean, the money that we do is all in for turnover, is like big building suppliers and different places. So we've got companies like Mike Y down in Devon, who supplies materials. T-Mauer, T-Y-M-A-W-R, over in Wales.
They're both in our directory, yeah.
Brilliant. Oh, excellent. Eco Merchant.
Oh no, sorry, no. I meant the low impact directory. They're both in the low impact directory.
Oh yes, of course. Yes, yeah.
So they aren't to go through the low impact directory and just call people up and say,
really, because I think all of those companies, again, they have that sustainable sort of steer on them. So Eco Merchant, there's different places, but then a lot of the stuff we have is just from general suppliers. So we buy a certain amount of stuff from Travis Perkins and Jewsons and Build Based, or all those big
they'll be further down the line.
That's it. And Civils places, Keyline, and different, all these different big building suppliers for different stuff, because we have to have a certain amount of all that stuff. And interestingly, actually, it's getting a lot easier to buy things, because basically, if you go to all of these yards, they will sell you whatever you want. So if you say, because normally, for example, they were doing this building in Hastings at the moment for this big country park for Hastings Borough Council, and they'd specified things like recycled concrete blocks. So I think I don't know what it's called, like I can't remember the brand name of it, but basically most of these suppliers who supply stuff, they don't supply stuff direct. You have to go through a supplier, and those suppliers will generally be the Travis Perkins of the world and whatever. So you go to them and say, can you get me a quote for these materials? And then they go to the supplier and get the quote. So that's quite an accessible thing. So whereas a few years ago that might have been quite difficult, now you can go to them and ask for these things like foam glass and recycled things and whatever, and they'll just go off and get you quotes for them, just like they'd get you quotes for any sort of brick or for those sorts of things. So there have been big improvements there on that front. And they don't seem to bat an eyelid now about doing those sorts of things, whereas before, they may not understand them as well when they're trying to help you buy them, and those sorts of things. But yeah, so lots of so some specialist suppliers, but they're all of a fair size. But Mike Whitey, Mal, those, I mean, they must do a big volume.
So those kind of suppliers, those sort of micro to small, medium size specialist suppliers. How regularly do you trade with them? So what sort of percentage of your turnover, and how important are they to you?
They're really important, because they are the easy way to get the things that we want, and especially with the bulk things. So things like for foundations and insulation, for non-wicking stuff, we use instead of concrete, we use a lot of foam glass, gravel, which is just made from, I don't know if you've seen it, just made from recycled glass. It looks like pumice. It only comes from Germany and Austria, I think. So it gets shipped over. And the only way to get those things is you can either buy, you just go to Mike Y or somewhere like that and get a quote for it. And then it'll come over in a big Arctic truck, and then they'll just like drop it all off, or they sell it bagged and all these sorts of things. So there's, and things like lime and clay and these sorts of things. Wormersley's up in West Yorkshire is one of the, they sell clay plaster and stuff. So there's only a handful of places in the country that sell those things.
So none of these are local to you, are they? They're scattered all over the country?
They are. I mean, if you're specifically because obviously lime is a bit more available. So if you want lime products, then, just where I am down here. Oh, we've got, this is Suki here.
Oh,
hello.
Oh, Keith's gone. He could have said hello.
Right, Soups. Want to come and sit on the laptop, probably. So locally, just over in Hampshire, between Salisbury and Southampton, we've got Lime Stuff, who are a lime supplier. down in Dorchester, very close to me. We've got Rose of Jericho, who are a specialist lime supplier.
I've never heard of any of those.
No, so they're you know, and they're good, and a lot of the line work is obviously based more around heritage stuff and different things, and we're obviously trying to ease it back into normal building and stuff. But these materials generally, you know, are harder to get hold of and are more expensive than the modern equivalents, really, which is an issue until we can get them to volume again, because obviously that's what part of that those economics are about. But again, equally, lime is interesting because obviously everywhere you went, they would have had lime and brought in the stone and, you know, heated it and slaked it and all those sorts of things. And it's one of those industries which has just now gone to like a random few places in the country, whereas, like, you know, every building site would have, you know, slaked their own lime, and every port would have lime kilns and different things. And, you know, I find that fascinating, and what we're trying to do, what I want to do with my business, because I only ever wanted to work in Dorset. I never wanted to work further afield, and now we do have to go further afield. And, you know, I'm getting far too old to do that. I just always wanted to work in Dorset and have, you know, local building for local communities and have them engaged and whatever. And we did some work down in Bridport. Had some funding for it to look at how you could. Their starting point was obviously everywhere you go now. The government dictates to councils, you know, they've got to provide a certain amount of housing and all these sorts of things. And they were saying, I think down in Bridport, they were saying they had to build, I don't know, 2,000 new homes in the next 5 years or something like that. And they were trying to work out how they could actually localize some of that work, because you normally get these big companies come in, they bring in a lot of labor, and, you know, they might use some sort of localish subcontractors or whatever, but all the materials are coming in from all around the world, and, you know, bricks from Spain and different things, whatever it might be, and how we could make some of those things local. And it was a really good exercise. So we looked at timber and how you could make timber, you could use local timber and different things. So Dorset as a county, you know, like a lot of other places, is actually quite rich in resources, as a lot of places would be: timber, clay, sand, gravel, you know, all the sorts of things that you need to be able to make and straw, you know, everywhere. And using straw buildings as a model, we worked out that if you did straw, I don't think we've got anything about straw panels on low impact, have we? So this is like the next step for straw. Everybody thinks if straw buildings are going to go mainstream, it will be panels.
Ah, right, okay.
Structural panels. No
more persuaders.
Well, there will always be a place, hopefully, for the persuaders, and it's a great way to self-build. But I think if you can ever, because the one issue with straw and building on site, although you can do it at any time of year, and we do it at any time of year, people do see it as like a summer activity, because you need to be a lot of labour on site and getting those things working. And undeniably, it is easier in summer to do that. The things on your side. Whereas if you've got the whole concept, obviously, of building with structural panels, whether they're made of, you know, horrible stuff or not, is that you do it all in a factory setting, so the tolerances are great. You've got the equipment there to make them in a great, efficient and well put together way, and then you take them out of that place and put them on site, and the stuff on site goes together really quickly, because it's just a big Lego thing on site to plug big panels together, and that works brilliantly for straw, because then the speed to weather tight is hugely increased. So you might be putting up the main structure and the roof for a building in, potentially, you know, for a domestic home, easily less than a week. And then you can get onto all the other fit out with a weather tight shell. Whereas with, you know, building a straw-bale building on site might take you easily 3 months of work to do the frame and all the straw work and everything else. And you're fighting the weather through all of that. And so actually financially it stacks up very well to do it off site. So the idea is that where I'm trying to push, I think, you know, we've got the Straw-bale Building UK group where we're trying to push, you know, promote straw-bale building, is to kind of, my desire would be to see, you know, on any industrial unit somewhere in a town or whatever, you could have a unit pushing out these panels, and that could be, you know, local straw, local timber, local people, local clay going on them, all these different sorts of things. And you could literally localize the whole of fabric construction for a big chunk of buildings very quickly and very easily. And we could be doing that today. You know, there's absolutely no reason.
That would be beneficial in so many ways, wouldn't it? And
yeah.
And then you could certainly have a sort of little mutual credit ecosystem amongst those builders and customers. And
yeah, and what we want to do is to work out a way to create those panel systems and actually have it on like a very community friendly sort of licensing model to sort of incentivize those groups to do it really. So it's, you know, it's sort of it's that the information is easily accessible for them, but it's hopefully some sort of, there would be some restrictions on who could use it so that we could steer it more towards those groups rather than having other people take it over or whatever. But it's an interesting road as to how to get to volume with those sorts of things. And then you do sort of bring in that corporate angle. And I think a lot of us would like to try and stimulate the local aspect of it rather than, you know, somebody make it. Because at the moment, the panels, the best panels are made over in Lithuania and then they're shipped over. And they work because they're kind of, labour's very cheap in Lithuania and that's great. And they make great panels. But, you know, and actually, if you take into account the carbon aspect, it's not as bad as people think it would be because it's just literally coming on one truck once. And, you know, rather than 6 people going to a building site an hour away every day for, you know, for 3 months or something, it stacks up pretty well emissions wise. But, you know, if you could be doing all that stuff even closer, then it's got to be even better, hasn't it?
Yeah,
So,
if there was a little place in Dorset doing those things, it would be great, wouldn't it?
yeah, you know, but every town or every county could have a facility like that to produce those things. And you would be using all of that stuff. And that, to me, I really like about the whole, because to me, it all fits together. Of course, you know, the environmental stuff and the localism stuff and all these different things. And then, you know, trying to get back to the days where, you threw a stone on it, whatever you were building your building with, that sort of thing, you know.
Yeah. Oh, I guess it's a problem with the global economy, isn't it? That you have some parts of the world where, you know, wages are so low that they're just wide open to becoming like sweatshop labor and plant.
Yeah, that's it. You know, and I'm not knowledgeable enough to know, you know, how we get away from that. But I just think, you know,
mutual credit.
Sorry,
mutual credit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, that's it. If those mechanisms are there, then, you know, and people can use them, then it is all about the path of least resistance, isn't it? At the end of the day, if people think things work well for them, then they're going to stick with it rather than.
So, what's your relationship like with these specialist suppliers? Is it a personal relationship?
To a point. Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We sort of use them for big, bulky stuff mainly, and then a lot of the bitty stuff around buildings, which so much of buildings are, that they do tend to be like bigger companies who have produced those solutions. So, you know, just in the last couple of weeks, we've bought nearly 10 grand of roof lights from Velux, you know, or you know, all of the sort of ancillary and the mechanical and engineering stuff that goes into buildings are just for mainstream industry, really. So it tends to be the fabric stuff that we get from those more specialist suppliers. So yeah, like I said, like lime, foam glass, gravel, blocks, different things, and then a lot of those other things will either come through the big the standard Travis Perkins type places.
But is your relationship with these specialist suppliers, is the nature of your relationship enough that you might be able to persuade them to join the Open Credit Network directory and actually maybe have a trading with you in mutual credit?
Yeah, I would expect them to be interested. I mean, certainly companies like Mike Y always seem to be quite up for doing those things.
And if you had a chat with them, what would be your angle? Would it just be this would be good for our business, or you know, this might insulate us from wider economic crashes if they happen? If we have a means of exchange which works for us that doesn't require money, it might be very, very good for us in the case of some sort of financial crash.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the only thing on that front, which I haven't had time to, in fact, I should say this before I forget to say it because I think it's quite important. My only holdback to going fuller into trying to get business through the network at the moment is that I don't understand the potential tax implications of how it would work.
So there's a blog article. There's a blog article on the site.
Oh, is there?
If you go to the opencredit.network and you look in the blogs, go down a bit. There's a blog article about the tax implications and the accounting implications as well.
That's good. Yeah, because that's the only thing that I oh yeah, I'm looking now. You can see on the. I'm looking at the FAQs. It's probably there somewhere. And that's it, because I'm currently, you know, that you have different places have the Let's stuff. But have you seen these, like the local exchange trading scheme things?
Yeah, they tended to be they weren't really about building a local economy. They were
No.
more on the sort of more than a sort of a hobby level. It never really, you might get, I don't know what kind of things, 20 or 30 Reiki healers or something, and no
Yeah.
plumbers, no electricians,
Yeah.
no car mechanics, and it didn't really build a local economy. It was very much individuals, and it's sort of petering out now, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. It's actually quite, the one here in Dorset is quite strong. The one
Is
around
it?
Dorchester in the centre of Dorset is quite good. Yeah, and they have
It's a county-wide one.
it's not county-wide. It's sort of more sort of West Dorset-y, I guess, because you've got Bridport. I'm sure you know, like Bridport is like Dorset's Totnes, if you like.
Yeah.
A bit more alternative stuff going on, and across to Dorchester and those sorts of things. It's that sort of mindset, and so in sort of south and West Dorset, it seems to be quite reasonably popular. I mean, I've never got, I've had scraps of work through it, but nothing, I've never had somebody come to me wanting to build a house or something, those sorts of things. And it is, what would I do if they did? Because then this is it, you need to be able to trade those things. And one of the things that I like about the open credit network is that you can get that connection with those people. Because for my sort of business, they're not necessarily going to be very local. There's, so I think I put on to my profile, I can supply whatever I can supply on the building and training and consultancy and those sorts of things. But the sort of things that I would like would be, business advice and those sorts of things, and anything that could help to progress my business. And indeed, it would be, suppliers and those sorts of things as well. But my immediate thought was actually it would be professional services for business would be a good thing. And then I could immediately see there were some people who were providing those sorts of things. And
So we paid some of our accountancy fee and mutual credit. We've got an accountant in Devon now, and accepts mutual credit for accountancy. So fantastic. There are some, So here's a question then. Do you think next time you have a chat with Timar or Mike Y or any of those specialist suppliers, you might be able to say, have a look at this, why don't you join this directory?
Yeah, happily, Dave.
Good idea.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Anything to sort of push it out there and put it across. I was trying to think sort of what and again, I'm sure there may be something on the website, but yeah, some guidance on how to do that would be good, I think.
Okay, that's very interesting. Yeah, so we could put together a little package which we can give businesses in the network and saying this is how you can build a little trading ecosystem for yourself.
Yeah, that would be good. Something along those lines. And I know, because I think sometimes it's funny because when you talk to these people, then it's not always easy to because normally you ring them up and you want something and you talk about that and those sorts of things. And so I think sometimes it is. It's not such a personal relationship that you could just launch into something like that.
Yeah, and you want a tried and trusted way of introducing to people. Like if you just said, by the way, you just started to launch into something, a moneyless trading system that's going to change the world.
I know. Yeah, you want to make a good
job. Hang up on you.
That's it. Yeah. So maybe like a little script or something, or I don't know how that sort of thing. So because when I talk to people, I'd like to be confident in what I'm talking about.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. So just a few notes about, this is what it is, this is how it might work, and blah, blah, blah.
Also, your suppliers would have to have ways to spend the credits that they earn from you.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's another question that have to be asked.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just a question of scale, isn't it? As it starts to scale up and they say, well, where am I going to spend my credits? And if we had, Co-op Energy and the phone co-op in there and say, well, you can pay your energy bill, you can pay your phone bill, you can, and
absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, it'd be brilliant. Yeah. It is just all such a great idea. And I think that, any business worth their salt is going to, is going to want to investigate different ways of doing business.
Of course, yeah. So, on the other side, when it comes to customers, who are your main customers, and what kind of customers are they? And do sales tend to be one-offs, or do you have regular customers, or?
Yeah, it's definitely all more one-off, and then it's kind of working your way into a situation where you could maybe get repeat business from the same sector, I guess. And so the public sector, local authorities are a good example of that. It's something that we're trying to work on at the moment. So there's a big thing. For natural building, I think there are two really good sources of kind of repeat sector business, and that would be local authorities, because of course local authorities now, many of them even if they don't know quite what they're trying to do about it yet, have declared climate emergencies and all these sorts of things. And so actually their policy is pushing them towards doing things.
Pushing them towards you.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is brilliant. And so anything to do that. And I've had nothing but good experiences with the local authorities that I've spoken to about them wanting to do things like that.
Yeah, unfortunately, the local authorities, we're a long way from local authorities having mutual credit accounts.
Sure, of course, but that's it. That's fine. And then who else was I going to say? Housing associations, for example.
Right. Okay.
So what we're trying to push with SBUC, or trying to do some work on, it's very preliminary at the moment, is like I was talking about with doing this concept of how you could do local building and get local people involved in doing those things. What SBUC sees as the way into that would very much be housing associations, because of course these are groups that have increasingly local authorities demand that more housing is, in inverted commas, sustainable, affordable rather, even though they're not necessarily, and all these different sorts of things. But like, those are the groups that can facilitate that housing at scale. So whereas, for example, 10 or 15 years ago, only 10% of houses on a 3,000 plot development would have had to have been affordable. Now they can dictate, I think, percentages as much as they want. I think they can easily dictate up to 50% or something, or whatever percentage of these houses have to be affordable. So, and quite often they will be engaged to provide those elements of the housing directly. So you're looking at a situation where housing associations are becoming quite big volume housing providers.
But I guess it's the same question again, isn't it? If your customers are housing associations, if they use mutual credit to trade with you, if they give that a go, how would they then earn the credits that they pay you?
Yeah, and again, and apart from what we've said, I don't know what the easy answers to that would be. But our thought with housing associations is that they quite often, they are certainly going to have a much better ethical stance than volume house builders, full stop. And that's how we see that you can actually work the sustainable building aspect into them more easily, because they've, the repeated examples of them having done that now and trying out different, more sustainable methods of building, is you're kind of pushing on an open door with them, because they do have better policies for trying to provide those things. So I would have thought, without knowing what those things might be, that would make them more open to considering other ways of working and doing things, because it would hit on the stuff that they want to do, like improving community stuff and all these different sorts of things.
But I mean, how would they earn their credits? I mean, I guess their income is from rents.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, there's a thought, isn't it?
So individuals would have to pay them some of their rent in mutual credits. I know we're getting into.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not quite sure how that would work, but I mean, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? Because there are a lot of people who live in housing association houses.
So they could have a little note from the housing association. How would you like to pay some of your rent in mutual credit? But then you're stuck with, how do they earn their mutual credit? So this is about ecosystem building.
It is, and also just interestingly on that thing, because I think I'm trying to, because it's a horrible building, but I live in a road, and at the end of the road, just next to I live next to my mum, and next to her house is a housing association block of flats. It's a hideous building, but my understanding is that some of the people that they have in those buildings, the tenants that they have, especially in communal housing, if you like, flats and those sorts of places, these housing associations will approach those people and try and engage them to maybe do things like maintenance and those sorts of things. So what if that might work? These people could effectively, and I guess maybe they do it already. I don't know. Maybe they let some people do some work in return for a reduction in their rent, or those sorts of things. Do you see what I mean?
They could do it via mutual credit, so it could all be officially recorded, and
and there would actually then be that they would then be able to use those things in whatever they wanted. It wouldn't just be a straight exchange. It could be,
they could pay their rent in it, or they could pay some of their rent in it, or they could buy somewhere else in the system. That's
really interesting, actually, because that could be a reasonable source of stuff and trades and those sorts of things. So it could work. There are probably quite a lot of ways that it could work quite well for housing associations.
But I guess what we need is, and we have got these people. We talked to lots of people who are very keen to start a mutual credit ecosystem in in their local area. So we need people like you who are prepared to talk to customers and suppliers and say, you know, we can do this. This isn't a pipe dream. This can happen.
No, absolutely. And just on that point, I mean, I know I obviously we only all have limited amounts of time or whatever, but you know, just like, because we're involved, obviously I'm involved in the straw-bale building UK, and we're trying to push straw-bale building and those sorts of things. But we came up with this idea we're currently part of this Interreg project, so there's a certain amount of funding for doing some stuff. And one thing that we came up with to try and spread and communicate and promote straw-bale building was this idea that we had straw-bale champions, if you like. And they were just people that we had maybe one per region in the UK, and they were able to go out to whoever it might be. So obviously in building and training and stuff, you have like the CPD stuff, don't you? So you get like architectural practices on a lunchtime.
What was that you said? Sorry, I didn't catch it.
Continuous professional development, CPD.
Oh, right, yeah.
Accreditation stuff. And so they don't necessarily have to be accredited sessions, but say, for example, I had always done it, but we just sort of created a slideshow that explained to people how straw-bale building worked. And then you could go to, you know, like an architectural practice, show them this little slideshow thing. And I've done it for you know, local interest groups and different things, all sorts of people who might be interested in like having a speaker come along to do stuff and those sorts of things, you know, which a lot of groups do, especially in communities. You have people, they want to like hear about, you know, how to knit something, or where, you know, how the local country park's getting on, or you know, or new ways to build, you know, they're forever looking for people to do those sorts of things. And that's a venue where, again, if you had something like that for OCN, you could go into a community and try and explain how these things might work, and it might stimulate.
Yes, as well as straw-bale building champions, local champions, there'd be mutual credit champions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And as much as my time is limited, you know, just to say, you know, I'd be very happy to do something like that here in Dorset to try and promote things, as well as
it's music to my ears.
Yeah, no, absolutely, because you know, and especially like I say, around Dorchester and West Dorset specifically, and kind of across into South Dorset here, there's a very receptive audience to those sorts of things, I think, and you can engage with, you know, like there are, you know, it would be something that I imagine transition groups, for example, of which there are a lot of now, would be quite interested in having a talk about those sorts of things. And it could be a really good way to get into, obviously I'm still thinking pushing on open doors and trying to get that message across to like-minded people, first of all, I guess. I know it's not all about that, but to try and scale it a bit and grow it.
Once you've got a solid base, then you can start bringing people in who are just thinking about their business, really, and that's fine.
Absolutely. You know, and it may be that if there are, although I was trying to draw a similarity between this in some regards and the Let stuff, where there are Let's groups, it may be that it could be seen as like a way to move Let stuff forward. If a lot of them are failing and those sorts of things, perhaps it could be a sell to them as well. I don't know.
Well, it's funny you say that. I'm having a coffee with the coordinator of Let's Link UK tomorrow. So
brilliant.
With Mary and have these kind of conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, because these things don't always, you know.
Yeah. Listen, Phil, it's been almost exactly an hour, so I don't want to take too much of your time. And it's been
Dave.
Fantastic conversation. Thank you very, very much.
I don't think we've ever had a proper chat, so it's good to
we haven't always been sort of emails and really nice to have a chat with you.
No, and before I go, I should say, because I hadn't got back to you about that guy who emailed about the lime stuff. Broadly, what he was saying was right. So you could update with what he was saying. But if you want me to do anything else about that, to go through stuff, but you know, he was talking about the different quantities were not quite right. And
no, that's fine. So I can drop him a message in the comments and say, yep, our specialist says spot on. You're right. Well done. Thank you very much. I'm going to change it.
That's great. And the only thing that I disagreed with what he was saying was he was suggesting that a cubic meter of lime mortar or plaster would be about 3 tons. And I think that's
a bit much, isn't it?
It would be about 1.5 to 2.
Yeah, about 1.5. Yeah,
two would be maybe right. So, but broadly with the volumes and stuff and the mixes and the fact that you know 5 tons of stuff doesn't make 5 tons of whatever. Sorry, that cubes of plaster didn't make. Anyway, what he was saying broadly made sense. So yeah, if I can help with anything else of that, let me know. But I was that all got lost in. No,
that's fine. I'll change that, and I'll bear in mind that one thing is probably wrong, but the rest is right. I'll change it.
No, that's great, Dave.
Good.
Brilliant.
I'm gonna watch this again and take lots of notes, and I'll talk
Yeah,
to our boys, and I think we should put together some sort of a package for local champions, as you say, and
yeah.
they can approach customers and suppliers to build a little ecosystem.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm very interested in those sorts of things, and happy to try and put you in touch with anybody else that I can think of that might work for those sorts of things. And
Fantastic. We'll
yeah,
definitely.
whatever I can do to help. Again, these are all sorts of things that I'd love to do more of if I had a bit more free time. But if I can find time to do anything, I'm very happy to help out.
That's music to my ears, Phil.
No.
That's great. We'll have a work on this package for local champions and get back to you.
Brilliant.
I'll let you go. Your phone's ringing crazy, so I'll let you get on. But thanks ever so much, Phil, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, Dave. Good to talk to you. Speak to you soon.
Cheers, Phil.
Cheers then.
Right.
Bye-bye.